Good morning, children. We have been discussing on the lipid metabolism, right? We have started with the breakdown of fatty acids, right? So the oxidation of fatty acids happens in the liver, adipose tissue, muscles, heart, etc., right? Renal cortex, etc. So, and this fatty acid oxidation requires mainly three different stages. That is, first activation is happening where the fatty acid is converted to fatty acyl CoA. This is happening in the cytoplasm and it's carried out by specific thiokinases or specific acyl CoA synthetases. That is, short chain fatty acids are carried out, activated by short chain fatty acyl synthetases, fatty acyl CoA synthetases or fatty acid thiokinases. Medium chain fatty acids are activated by medium chain fatty acyl CoA thiokinases or fatty acyl CoA synthetases. Long chain fatty acids are carried out by long chain fatty acyl CoA synthetases or thiokinases, and there is one last one which is arachidonic acid. Arachidonic acid itself is having specific enzyme which is known as arachidonyl CoA synthetase. So these are the four different enzymes, specific enzymes which are converting the fatty acids to their corresponding fatty acyl CoA molecules, right? So this is now activated. Now this active fatty acyl CoA which is performed in the cytoplasm or cytosol is now taken into the mitochondrial matrix where the beta oxidation is happening. So the beta oxidation of fatty acids are carried out in the mitochondrial matrix, but we know that the IMM is highly impermeable, so they take the help of a carrier protein, and the carrier protein is beta hydroxy gamma trimethyl ammonium butyrate, or simply it is known as carnitine. So carnitine shuttles the fatty acyl CoA from the cytoplasm into the mitochondrial matrix, and this transport mechanism we call it as a carnitine shuttle. Right? Again, the carnitine shuttle is happening with the help of three different enzymes, namely CAT1, then there is a translocase enzyme, and there is CAT3 or CPT1, then palmitoyl carnitine translocase or E2, then there is carnitine palmitoyl acyl transferase 2, right? CPT2. Right, so these are three enzymes, and finally it takes the fatty acyl CoA from the cytoplasm into the mitochondrial matrix, while carnitine is shuttled back onto the outer side of the inner mitochondrial membrane to shuttle the next molecule of fatty acyl CoA. So with this we have stopped our last class, right? So now the fatty acyl CoA is in the mitochondrial matrix ready for oxidation. So what do you mean by oxidation? Oxidation is the destruction of fatty acids or removal of the carbon chains, carbon atoms. So suppose we have explained the beta oxidation up to the carnitine shuttle with the help of palmitoyl CoA, right? We have taken palmitic acid as an example because it is the most abundant fatty acid. So palmitic acid is first converted into palmitoyl CoA by means of palmitoyl CoA thiokinase or palmitoyl CoA synthetase enzyme with the consumption of one molecule of ATP, CoA, SH, etc. Right? After which what happens? It is taken up by the carnitine shuttle, and CPT1 translocase and CPT2 translocates it from the cytosol into the mitochondrial matrix, where what happens? It is taken, palmitoyl CoA is now within the mitochondrial matrix. Now it is ready for oxidation, and this is known as a beta oxidation, or this is the third stage or the final stage of oxidation, which we call it as a beta oxidation because the lysis is happening on the beta position. Clear? That is with respect to the carbonyl group or CoA, right? CoA is start here. So from this beta oxidation, palmitoyl CoA will be subjected for oxidation on the beta position, right? So that is why it is known as a beta oxidation, and it is a cyclic process in which each beta oxidation consists of 4 different steps, and at the end of each step, at the end of each cycle, what happens? A 2-carbon molecule will be split off, and this is removed in the form of acetyl CoA. Okay, so the beta oxidation forms the final stage of oxidation, wherein the mitochondrial matrix, which occupies the fatty acyl CoA ready for beta oxidation, is subjected to various enzymes, right? So the beta oxidation, the third stage, beta oxidation, involves 4 different steps. There are 2 oxidation steps, 1 hydration step, and a thiolytic cleavage. Right? So only 4 different enzymes are involved in the oxidation, so that at the end of the 4th step, the C16 fatty acyl CoA or palmitoyl CoA will be reducing its number from 16 carbon atom to 14 carbon atom with the release of a 2 carbon molecule, and the 2 carbon molecule is our acetyl CoA. Now this acetyl CoA enters into the TCA cycle and can release the ATP. Clear? So how is the beta oxidation happening? The first step is the oxidation. Second step is hydration. Third step is oxidation, and finally there is thiolysis. So lysis by thiol group. That is thiolytic cleavage. Thiol means sulfhydryl group, sulfur containing group. Right? So there are 2 rounds of oxidation, 1 hydration and 1 breakage, thiolysis. Clear? So first one is oxidation. So step 1 is 1 and 3 are oxidation steps. First and the third step are oxidation or removal of hydrogen atoms. Right? Removal of hydrogen atom is known as oxidation or dehydrogenation. Right? So first and third step are the dehydrogenation steps. The second step is the hydration step. That is, water is incorporated. And the last one is thiolysis. Clear? For 4 steps. So this is our palmitoyl CoA. Right? So it is having the CoA. So this is the alpha carbon atom and this is the beta. So in between the alpha and the beta, there is a breakage happening. So that the 16 carbon is converted into a C14 molecule, right? C14 with SCOA. We'll come to it. So step 1 is oxidation. So shall we enter into our beta oxidation? Right. The step 1 is oxidation. Oxidation is also known as dehydrogenation. So the first and the third steps are dehydrogenation. Pakshe, there is a difference in the dehydrogenating coenzyme. That is, the first step is acted upon by, or the removal of hydrogen atom is carried out by FAD. Right? നമ്മൾ TCA cycle ഇതുപോലെ FAD പഠിച്ചിരുന്നു ഇല്ലേ? ഒരുവിധമുള്ള എല്ലാ dehydrogenation reactions is carried out by NAD, but there are certain exceptions where FAD can also act as the dehydrogenating coenzyme. An example for this is TCA cycle പോലെ തന്നെ ഇവിടെയും ഉണ്ട് ഒരു FAD dependent enzyme. So the first step of dehydrogenation is carried out by FAD dependent dehydrogenase enzyme, while the third oxidation or third dehydrogenation is carried out by NAD dependent dehydrogenase enzyme. That's the difference between the oxidation on the first and third step. The first and third step are both dehydrogenation reactions, but the first step is carried out by FAD dependent dehydrogenase, while the third step of dehydrogenation is carried out by NAD dependent dehydrogenase enzyme. Right? Okay. So step 1. So this is our acyl CoA, fatty acyl CoA or palmitoyl CoA, right? So it's having CoASH. This is COSCOA. Then there is a alpha carbon is CH2. This is the beta carbon, right? So acyl CoA is first acted upon by what? Dehydrogenase enzyme. But the dehydrogenation is carried out by FAD. So FAD collects the hydrogen atom from alpha and the beta. Up here, the hydrogen atom is removed. One H comes from the alpha carbon atom and the second H come from the beta carbon atom. അപ്പോൾ ഇവിടുന്ന് ഒരു H പോയി ഇവിടുന്ന് ഒരു H പോയി. അപ്പോൾ കാർബണിന് ഇവിടെ 3 വാലൻസി അല്ലേ ബാക്കി ഉണ്ടാവുള്ളൂ 1 2 പിന്നെ ഒരു H മറ്റേ H ഇവിടെ പോയി. അതുപോലെ ഈ കാർബണും ഒരു വാലൻസി ഇവിടെ ഒരു വാലൻസി ഇവിടെ പിന്നെ ഒരു H ഉള്ളൂ മറ്റേ H പോയി. So the fourth valency is satisfied by the introduction of a double bond, right? So that's the first reaction happening, that is dehydrogenation reaction, in which the hydrogen atoms are removed from the second and the third carbon atom or alpha and the beta carbon atom, thereby introducing a double bond in between the alpha and the beta carbon atom, and the enzyme is known as FAD dependent acyl CoA dehydrogenase. So this is how the dehydrogenation or the oxidation happens, and the compound obtained, the product obtained is known as enoyl CoA. What do you mean by en means double bond. Enoyl CoA. Enoyl CoA. Clear? And it is known as trans delta 2. Trans delta 2. What do you mean by trans? That is, it is not a cis bond, it's a trans bond. Clear? Trans isomer ആണ് ഫോം ചെയ്തിരിക്കുന്നത്. അതിനു വേണ്ടിയിട്ടാണ് ഡെൽറ്റ 2. This is the delta 2. Delta 2. Delta means position indicate ചെയ്യുന്നതാണ് ഡെൽറ്റ. So second positionൽ trans isomer ആയിട്ടുള്ള ഒരു double bond, ഒരു unsaturated compound is formed. So the compound is trans delta 2 enoyl CoA. That is a product obtained during the first reaction. So how is the first reaction formed? The fatty acyl CoA is acted upon by FAD dependent dehydrogenase enzyme or FAD dependent acyl CoA dehydrogenase enzyme, converting a saturated fatty acid to an unsaturated. The unsaturation is a trans double bond, trans delta 2 enoyl CoA. Clear? So this is how FADH2 defeats and the FADH2 now enters into the electron transport chain, right? So that's the first step. Then comes the second step. Okay. Yeah. Second step is hydration. First step was a dehydration reaction. Second step is hydration. That is introduction of a water molecule. Now we are going to remove this double bond. In a double bond remove water incorporate right? OH H. H H comes to the alpha carbon atom and OH come to the beta carbon atom. If final വരുമ്പോൾ ഈ രണ്ട് കാർബണാറ്റാണ് പോവുക. പോയി കഴിയുമ്പോൾ നമുക്ക് അവസാനത്തെ കാർബൺ പിന്നെ വരിക ഇതല്ലേ പോകുമ്പോ നമുക്ക് സി ഡബിൾ ബോണ്ട് ഓ ഉണ്ടാക്കണം റൈറ്റ് ഇപ്പൊ ഇവിടെ സി എച്ച് ആണ് അപ്പൊ ഈ സി എച്ച് മാറിയിട്ട് നമുക്ക് ഇവിടെ സി ഡബിൾ ബോണ്ട് ഓ വന്നാലേ നമുക്ക് റിസൾട്ടിങ് കോമ്പൗണ്ട് അഗൈൻ another fatty acid with what 2 carbon less ആയിട്ട് നമുക്ക് ജനറേറ്റ് ചെയ്യാൻ പറ്റും അതിന് വേണ്ടിയിട്ടാണ് വാട്ടറിനെ ഇൻകോർപ്പറേറ്റ് ചെയ്യുന്നത് ക്ലിയർ സോ the water is incorporated by hydration. Oh, hydratase enzyme, right? The delta 2 enoyl CoA hydratase enzyme cleaves the double bond and incorporates an H on the alpha carbon atom and an OH on the beta carbon atom. Clear? So that hydroxy acyl CoA is formed. The hydroxy acyl CoA, right? Now comes the third step. Third step is second round of oxidation. Second round of oxidation means second round of dehydrogenation. But here, ഇനി ഇവിടെ ഡീഹൈഡ്രേഷൻ നടക്കാം നമുക്ക് വേണ്ടത് ഇതുപോലൊരു സി ഡബിൾ ബോണ്ടോ നമുക്ക് ഇവിടെ ഉണ്ടാക്കണം റൈറ്റ് അപ്പൊ എച്ച് എവിടുന്ന പോവാ ഈ രണ്ട് എച്ച് ആണ് പോവുക ക്ലിയർ റൈറ്റ് സോ ഹൈഡ്രോക്സി അസൈൽ CoA is acted upon by NAD dependent dehydrogenase enzyme so that 2 hydrogen atoms are removed, but this time the hydrogen is going from the beta carbon atom so that a C double bond O is produced. Clear? So this compound is known as beta keto acyl CoA. The compound is known as 3 keto or beta keto acyl CoA. Hydroxy acyl CoA, right? The reaction hydratase enzyme very indirectly compound beta hydroxy acyl CoA ഉണ്ടല്ലോ it's also known as crotonyl CoA എന്നും നമ്മൾ വിളിക്കും right also known as crotonase enzyme. This is known as crotonase enzyme or it is also known as crotonyl CoA, right? Hydratase enzyme is also known as crotonase enzyme. Clear? So crotonase enzyme converts the trans-enoyl CoA to hydroxyacyl CoA. Then hydroxyacyl CoA is acted upon by the second round of dehydrogenase enzyme, but this time dehydrogenase is carried out by NAD dependent dehydrogenase. So that what happens, the 2 hydrogen atoms are removed from the beta carbon only so that it is a keto group is introduced, right? So this is known as beta keto acyl CoA, right? ഇപ്പൊ എന്താ ഇനി നമുക്ക് എന്ത് ചെയ്യാം ഇതിനെ സ്പ്ലിറ്റ് ചെയ്ത് കഴിഞ്ഞാൽ ഇനി നമുക്ക് സ്പ്ലിറ്റ് ചെയ്യാം സ്പ്ലിറ്റ് ചെയ്ത് കഴിഞ്ഞാൽ എന്താ CH2 സ്പ്ലിറ്റ് ചെയ്ത് കഴിയുമ്പോൾ 2 ഇലക്ട്രോൺസ് ഇങ്ങോട്ട് വരും അപ്പൊ CH3 CO SCOA അതാരാ അസിറ്റൈൽ CoA എന്നിട്ട് ഇവിടെ C ഡബിൾ ബോണ്ട് O ആയിട്ടാണ് നിൽക്കുന്നത് അല്ലെ C ഡബിൾ ബോണ്ട് O will be converted into thiolytic cleavage ആണ് അപ്പൊ thiol ഗ്രൂപ്പ് വെച്ചിട്ടാണ് ലൈസ് ചെയ്യുന്നത് അപ്പൊ ഇതെന്തായി മാറും ഇതും ഒരു ഫാറ്റി അസൈൽ ഗ്രൂപ്പ് ആയിട്ട് മാറും സോ ഇൻ ദ നെക്സ്റ്റ് സ്റ്റെപ്പ് what happens, the 3 keto acyl CoA is undergoing thiolytic cleavage so that CoA converts the fatty acyl CoA with 2 carbon removed so that it is shortened by 2 carbon atoms so that palmitoyl CoA is now converted into C14 fatty acid. Clear? So this is the reaction happening in the beta oxidation. So acyl CoA vannu, FAD dependent dehydrogenase vannu, trans 2 enoyl CoA is formed. Trans 2 enoyl CoA is undergoing hydration to give beta hydroxy acyl CoA or 3 hydroxy acyl CoA by hydratase enzyme or it is also known as crotonase enzyme. So this crotonase enzyme converts trans 2 acyl CoA to beta hydroxy acyl CoA. Beta hydroxy acyl CoA is undergoing NAD dependent dehydrogenase enzyme to give beta keto acyl CoA. And finally, it is undergoing thiolytic cleavage to give rise to 1 molecule of acetyl CoA and a fatty acyl CoA with 2 carbon less. Right? And NADH electron transport chain. FADH2 also enters into electron transport chain. So this is beta oxidation. I think you have followed the reaction. Energetics I will be taking in the next class. Okay, thank you.